Middle Way Philosophy, video number 6, Integration, by Robert M. Ellis. To explain what integration is, I'm going to start with the picture of the two mules. The story of the two mules was used in this simple graphic form originally by pacifist campaigners. But it's a wonderful way of conveying exactly how integration works, not just in terms of war and peace, but in terms of psychology. Let's look at the story closely, stage by stage. The story of the two mules is a story about desires and beliefs. And in the first picture, the mules have incompatible desires. This is because they're tied together. They also have beliefs about the value of eating different piles of food. So not only do they want different things, but they have beliefs about what it is they should be doing. As the story continues, the two mules have incompatible desires, and those incompatible desires create conflict. However, they're only in conflict because those desires are framed by incompatible beliefs. It's because of the way they're seeing the situation that they're in conflict. Each mule, too, takes his or her own beliefs to be absolute. They're not thinking about the other mule or the other mule's situation or beliefs. They're not considering any other possibility than what they think they should be doing at that point. As they go on, the conflict becomes increasingly intense. The two mules become desperate. But there comes a point when the mules have to recognize that this isn't working. Their frustration creates a reframing of the situation because each is just not getting what they want. So at that point, each mule recognizes that their belief isn't absolute. They're forced to consider alternatives to the belief they thought was absolute. That induces receptivity to other beliefs. In terms of the brain, that means their right hemisphere is activated. They're looking for new possibilities, rather than staying in the same old loops. Other beliefs then become possible. By the end then, both mules have adopted more adequate beliefs. They've also, by adopting more adequate beliefs, achieved their goals. In this case, fully. Though in other kinds of examples, some compromise won't be necessary, depending on the circumstances. So the beliefs and desires of the mules, previously in conflict, have now been integrated. So it's this process that we mean by integration. This model of integration can be applied at the political level, in peacemaking. And so here, of course, we're not just talking necessarily about compromise. We're talking about the reframing of the situation so as to think about it differently, so that both sides can achieve their goals at least partially. However, it's not just at the political and social level, but also at the individual psychological level. We also need to integrate our desires where they are conflicting within us. One part of us wants to smoke, the other wants to give up. One part wants to eat a cake, another wants to diet. Instead of integration, the temptation is often to use repression instead. That's when we target the desires and beliefs that we don't want at this particular moment. We try to eliminate them. But that simply doesn't work. The shadow has a habit of simply popping up again somewhere else when we're not quite expecting it. That desire for cake hasn't disappeared, it's still there. That political opposition hasn't disappeared, it's still there. Integration, then, is closely interrelated with the middle way. In order to integrate our desires and beliefs, we have to be able to get into that ambiguous middle zone, and that means we have to leave behind absolutizing beliefs, either about things that we positively want or things that we reject. There are three types of integration. Firstly, the integration of desire. That means the rechanneling of our energies so that they're no longer flowing against each other, but instead they're flowing together in the same direction, trying to achieve the same goals. The integration of meaning is about the communication between our different desires and beliefs. If we don't have the same basic symbols or the same basic terms in which those different sides communicate with each other, then we're not going to be able to integrate in other respects. Then the integration of belief is where beliefs become more adequate, not necessarily compromising, although sometimes they need to be compromised. When beliefs are previously in opposition, but then they create a more adequate form that addresses the conditions better, then integration of belief has taken place. Desire, meaning and belief are interdependent. Particularly, meaning grows out of desire and belief grows out of meaning in turn. The practice of integration of desire involves relaxing habitual conflicts so that we become more aware of repressed energies and repressed desires. The practice of meditation is one good way of doing that at an individual level. As we practice a particular form of meditation, whatever it is, we find what we call distractions coming up. Those distractions are contrary desires, and we become aware of those contrary desires through the course of the practice. The integration of meaning can be practiced through the arts, through education, through engagement and discussion of all sorts. By doing this, we gain more resources that we can draw on later in considering our beliefs. There are more options open to us, available in our brains. The integration of belief can happen in any context where disagreement is possible in a provisional space. Where conflict doesn't happen, instead, people are able to adjust their beliefs. People are able, in fact, to learn from each other. This can happen in the context of critical thinking, of philosophy, or of a well-conducted scientific method. So, to summarise, integration is the process of overcoming conflict of all kinds. Conflict can be psychological at individual level, it can be social, or it can be political. Conflicting desires can be reconciled by reframing our beliefs. But absolutized and repressed desires and beliefs prevent integration. That's why integration is interdependent with the middle way that involves avoiding absolutized beliefs, whether negative or positive. Integrative practice, to enable integration to take place, needs to combine working with desire, meaning, and belief. All those elements are crucial to the process of integration.